When I woke up, I was lying in my ascetic boss's bed, my glands swollen and tender. I was a bottom-ranked, defective Omega, while Damon was an S-class Alpha. On top of that, wasn't he the one who hated physical contact with Omegas the most? Later, when Damon caught me having dinner with my childhood fiancé, I was dragged into his office and pinned against the wall. His long fingers slid beneath the hem of my shirt. Move again, and don't blame me if I do something, right here. The arm around my waist felt heavy. Half awake, I blinked as a faint heat pulsed from my gland. The room was dim, filled with the unmistakable presence of an alpha. The body beside me radiated heat. My mind slowly cleared, then snapped awake. The alpha was still asleep. Carefully easing out of his hold, I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to piece last night together. At the company dinner, I'd been assigned to sit beside Damon, my direct superior. I had no choice but to obey. After endless rounds of toasts, the alcohol finally hit me. Just when another glass was lifted toward me, the cup in my hand was intercepted midair. Damon took my glass, then took my wrist. I just remembered there's unfinished work. I'm taking Chase with me. You all go on. The others could only force smiles as he led me out. My mind went blank. By the time Damon got me into his car, I'd already passed out. When the car stopped in an unfamiliar neighborhood, he hauled me out. Staring at the strange apartment, I asked, "Aren't we going back to the office? Where is this?" He set me onto the sofa. His sleeves were rolled up, showing strong, defined forearms. With a soft, amused breath, he said, "You're this drunk and still thinking about work?" I shook my head, and then, for some insane reason, reached out to touch his arm. Everyone at the office knew Damon hated contact with Omegas. There was no way he'd bring me to his place. This had to be a dream. My hand moved up his arm, stopping at his chest. I squeezed. Of course, an S-class Alpha. Since I was dreaming anyway, why not squeeze a few more times? My hand wandered lower, almost reaching somewhere important. When he caught me, Damon's gaze darkened, his Adam's apple shifting. "What do you think you're doing?" This dream was ridiculously realistic. I felt no fear. I leaned closer and nuzzled the side of his neck. He frowned. Thinking about how cold and untouchable he usually was, I couldn't resist teasing him. Well, he was the one who walked into my dream. His cedarwood scent curled around me. The tips of his ears reddened. "Damon, your scent smells so good." He tightened his grip on my arm. "Chase, don't push me." He tried to rein in his pheromones. Unhappy, I pulled my arm free, and reached up, peeling the suppression patch from his neck. A second later, the alpha's gland was exposed. Cedar burst through the room. My whole body heated instantly. I wanted more. Damon was holding himself back, catching my wandering hands again. "Don't move. I don't know what I'll do." I met his eyes, unguarded and reckless. It's a rare chance to have a dream like this. Why wouldn't I take advantage? Then do it. Who's stopping you? The moment the words left my mouth, he flipped our positions. Damon pressed me into the corner, breathing hard. "You're sure?" The heat was climbing fast. I could barely think. "Are you even capable or not?" The alpha let out a soft laugh. "Baby, you asked for this. Don't regret it." Cedar and citrus intertwined in the air. Later, I'd be crying and begging him to stop. But Damon would only pull me back again and again, his mouth lingering against my gland. When my mind returned, I slowly looked to the side. The alpha's straight nose and sharp features were unmistakable. His skin still bore faint scratch marks. I rubbed my eyes. I wasn't hallucinating. That really was Damon, the untouchable boss of the entire building. Everyone knew he despised contact with Omegas, especially clingy ones. I was dead. If I didn't run now, I never would. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my wrinkled clothes, and fled from Damon's villa as fast as I could. Inside the room, the alpha stirred at the sound of his phone buzzing. Irritated, he hung up without checking. He reached out to pull the person beside him into his arms, only to find empty sheets, still faintly warm. Damon sat up slowly, cedar scent lingering in the air. Images from last night replayed in his mind. The corner of his mouth lifted. The taxi driver kept glancing at me through the rearview mirror, his expression oddly complicated. Kids these days, sigh. I lowered my head onto my knees, questioning every life choice that had led me here. When I finally got home, I rushed to change into clean clothes. As for the outfit I had taken off, yeah, better not look at it. In the mirror, the skin at my nape looked irritated, marked in ways that made my stomach twist. And that lingering sandalwood scent around me, Damon's scent, still hadn't faded. That S-Class Alpha really lived up to the title. I collapsed onto my bed, completely lost. The more I thought about it, the worse I felt. Rather than wait for Damon to pressure me into quitting, maybe I should just resign on my own. Eyes stinging, I ordered takeout to comfort my wounded soul. After polishing off a pizza, I opened my laptop and started drafting my resignation letter. The next morning, I waited until Damon had entered the building before approaching the elevator. Outside the CEO's office, I took 5 long, steadying breaths. Only then did I force myself to knock. "Come in," came his cool voice. The moment I pushed the door open, Damon's gaze swept over me, calm, but with a hint of amusement. Gripping the letter tightly, I placed it on his desk with trembling hands. His eyes lowered to the envelope. Something in his expression darkened. I looked aside, guilty. "Damon, about last night. I'm sorry. I really am." He picked up the letter with long, elegant fingers, then looked directly at me. "So you think you can just walk away?" He continued. "Where did the person from last night go? The one who..." Seeing he was about to bring up something mortifying, I hurried to cut him off. I had too much to drink. You know that." Damon clearly didn't buy it. "So what's your official reason for resigning?" he asked. "Having personal entanglements with your boss?" He stressed the last few words deliberately. My face heated instantly. I mumbled, "Damon, last night, you didn't exactly seem upset about it. Who was the one who kept pulling me back, twice?" Damon raised a brow. "True, I wasn't. Are you trying to negotiate blame?" He stepped closer. "So how do you want me to take responsibility?" I instinctively backed up until my shoulders hit the wall. His gaze burned a little too intensely. "Can't we just pretend it never happened?" My voice grew smaller and smaller. "No," he answered simply. "Fine. If he wanted honesty." I met his eyes. "What's done is done. So how do you want me to make it right? If you want me to resign, or disappear from your sight forever, that's fine." Instead of answering, Damon loosened his tie, then the top button of his shirt. I slapped a hand over my eyes. "If you want some kind of revenge, can we not do it here?" Damon chuckled. "What are you imagining?" He'd undone only one button. He tugged at his collar, revealing faint marks along his collarbone. Marks I definitely didn't want to acknowledge. My gaze drifted to the suppression patch at his neck. "My scent was that irresistible," he said lightly. "You even left marks on my neck." Top-tier alpha pheromones were supposed to be overwhelming. And after last night, well, I really hadn't held back. Compared to his marks, mine didn't even look that dramatic. "You see," Damon sighed, "it's distracting. Hard to focus on work. So," I raised my hand solemnly, "to prevent distracting you, I swear that once I resign, you'll never see me again." Damon captured my hand. "So you're going to be my assistant?" "Okay, I'll pack up and..." "Wait, what? Assistant?" He nodded, unhurried. "You wanted to compensate me, didn't you? Or do you not want to?" Silence filled the room. I nodded very faintly. "I want to." "Yeah, right." Damon smiled faintly and returned to his desk. "I look forward to working with you, Assistant Chase." Then he said with complete seriousness, "Does it still hurt?" "Hurt? What? Why were we circling back to this again?" "I thought we agreed to stop talking about it," I muttered, face burning. "I'm checking on my assistant," Damon said calmly. "Is that wrong?" I had no comeback. "It's not that bad. Just a bit uncomfortable if I sit too long." He opened a drawer and handed me a small tube of ointment. "Use this at night. It'll help." Judging by how prepared he was, he must have bought it early this morning. Heat rushed up my neck. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. Damon stood, handed me the ointment, and said, "Go rest. You start officially next Monday." Someone called for him from the hallway, and he left. I stayed in the office 5 minutes to calm down, then went home. Soon enough, Monday arrived. I let out a sigh and knocked on the CEO's door. Damon was frowning at his computer, all business, until he looked up and saw me. "Damon, where's my desk?" He pointed with his chin. I turned, and felt my heart sink. The spot was directly visible from Damon's office. Every move I made would be within his line of sight. Reluctantly, I set up my things. The moment I looked up, Damon was already watching me. I ducked behind a file. When lunch break finally came, I was just about to sneak out when Damon appeared in front of my desk, tapping on it lightly. "Having lunch with your boss is part of your job description." So I smiled stiffly and followed. I headed for the driver's seat, but Damon guided me into the passenger seat instead. "Sit." Why did this feel backwards? He took me to one of the city's well-known restaurants. He kept serving food into my bowl, probably trying to overwhelm me as revenge. "I really can't eat anymore," I said after swallowing the last piece of salmon. Damon paused mid-air with his chopsticks, then let out a soft laugh. "Anyone watching would think I'm forcing you." "You kind of are," I muttered. "Food, drink." All that was left was. Before the thought finished, Damon suddenly leaned in. Closer, and closer. Warm breath brushed my lips. I froze, eyes squeezing shut instinctively. A low chuckle sounded right by my ear. I opened my eyes abruptly. Damon's handsome face was inches away. He raised a brow. Why'd you close your eyes? My ears burned. He wasn't done. Were you hoping I'd kiss you? No. My eyes felt dry. Dry eyes, he echoed, amused. Not anticipation. He leaned in again. This time, I leaned back until there was nowhere left to go. We paused there for a long second. Then Damon's cool fingertips brushed the corner of my lips. Messy kid. My entire face flamed. The worst part, my heart actually skipped. Pathetic. I followed Damon back to the car, trying to convince myself it was all because of his alpha aura. Not him. Back at the office, I headed toward my desk but Damon tugged me by the collar into his office. He stretched lazily. Ugh, my back's a bit sore. The meaning was extremely obvious. Fine. After lunch, I'd tolerate him. Is this pressure okay? I asked as I massaged his shoulders. From behind, his physique looked annoyingly good, broad shoulders, narrow waist. And his back, well, nice. But after a moment, something felt off. Enjoying yourself? Damon asked suddenly. I froze, realizing my hands had drifted lower without thinking. I withdrew them immediately. Damon didn't tease further. Instead, he closed all the blinds. The clock said lunchtime was almost over, but Damon didn't seem ready to let me leave. He walked to the resting room and opened the door. Have you been using the ointment? He asked it like a perfectly normal question. Removing his jacket, he looked far too comfortable in just a white shirt. Heat crept up the room. I've used it. I'm mostly better now, I said. He nodded, satisfied, and sat on the bed. When I didn't move, he patted the space beside him. Panic shot through me. He wasn't seriously thinking. No way. Not at work. I was a law-abiding citizen. Damon, we really shouldn't. He let out a soft laugh. I'm asking you to rest. We have a lot to do this afternoon. Then, with mock surprise, Chase, you didn't think I meant something else, did you? Before he could tease me further, I hurried over and sat on the edge of the bed. Thank you, Damon. Utterly embarrassing. But the bed was ridiculously comfortable. The moment I lay down, my body relaxed. Within 3 minutes, I was asleep, forgetting everything else. I woke up because of the heat. I had no idea how long I'd been asleep, but the room had grown dim. Something warm was wrapped firmly around my waist, keeping me from moving. Slowly, I opened my eyes. A field of white met my vision. Then the faint scent of sandalwood drifted into my nose. Calming, steady, unmistakably Damon. The arm around my waist tightened slightly, pulling me closer. Only then did I fully register the situation. Damon and I were practically tangled together. This was absolutely not how co-workers were supposed to rest, especially considering we already had a complicated history. Carefully, I tried to lift his arm away. But the moment my fingers brushed his skin, the person beside me opened his eyes. Damon's gaze darkened as he looked at my hand on his arm. My face burned instantly. He spoke first. Why are you lying in my arms? And why were you trying to hold my hand? I met his eyes, flustered. You were the one holding me first. I tried to pull away, but his arm loosened at a deliberately slow pace. You came over on your own, he said lazily. I definitely did not. I slept like a rock. Unable to argue, I sat up and rubbed my eyes. Damon spoke again behind me. Not running away this time. I muttered under my breath. It's not like anything inappropriate happened. No need to run. With that, I stood, put on my shoes, and walked out, completely missing the heated look Damon gave my back. When I returned to my desk, a coworker rushed over. Assistant Chase, did the boss lecture you the whole lunch break? Everyone else pretended to work, but their ears were basically pointed at us. I obviously couldn't say I'd been asleep in Damon's resting room, so I forced a brave smile. It's fine. She patted my shoulder in sympathy. Don't worry, all the Omegas around Damon get treated like that. A week slipped by quietly. Work was peaceful. Damon didn't make things difficult. Well, unless being dragged to lunches and naps counted. Not that I minded too much. Just, we always somehow woke up holding onto each other, which definitely felt wrong. Today, Damon pulled me into the resting room as usual. Wait a second, I said, taking out a thin blanket from my bag. I'll use my own blanket today. You know, keeping a proper distance. Damon's brows tightened slightly, but he didn't say anything. It turned out pointless anyway, because when I woke up at the end of the break, I was in his arms again. I stared at Damon's sleeping face and sighed deeply. If this continued, I was genuinely afraid I'd start feeling something I shouldn't. By the time Damon woke, I had already left. After work, everyone headed out one by one. I had just grabbed my bag when Damon called me back. Assistant Chase, come with me to an event. It wasn't a simple gathering. It was practically a full-blown banquet. A staff member greeted us as soon as the car stopped. Or rather, greeted Damon. I followed him inside. The entire hall glittered with gold. Soon, an alpha-looking man walked toward us. Damon, long time no see. Damon gave a polite nod. The man turned to me. Is this your partner? I paused. No, I'm just Damon's assistant. Perfect. May I have your contact information? Maybe it was for work coordination. But before I could pull out my phone, Damon stepped in front of me. Assistant Chase is working. I leaned around him. But isn't this work-related? The man chuckled knowingly. Oh, I'm not here to discuss work. Damon, you'd better keep an eye on him. What was that even supposed to mean? After the man left, Damon led me to a quieter corner. Wait here. He took a few steps, then turned back, sounding warningly calm. And don't give your number to strangers. I nodded awkwardly. He was really afraid I might switch jobs, wasn't he? I picked up a glass from a nearby table and took a sip. It tasted good. Too good. So I ended up drinking a bit more. Soon, I realized my thoughts were getting fuzzy, and my body felt warmer than usual, heat spreading from the inside out. I loosened my jacket. Across the room, Damon was raising a glass with someone. I couldn't stop staring at him. With lights and people all around him, he stood out effortlessly. No wonder people were always drawn to him. He handled the crowd with graceful ease, though his gaze drifted to me from time to time. Feeling embarrassed, I looked away. Then Damon set his glass down. Excuse me. He crossed the room toward me in long strides. Why did you take your jacket off? I blinked slowly. Hot. I started tugging at my shirt collar. Damon quickly caught my hand. It's too warm, I murmured. He frowned slightly, picked up someone's forgotten coat from the chair, and guided me out of the hall. Inside the car, Damon turned on the cool air and took out one of the emergency patches he kept stocked. He helped me adjust it with careful, almost overly controlled movements. I sniffed, feeling the heat climb again. Damon, your scent's leaking. His brow creased. When was your last checkup? I shook my head. Can't remember. His voice dropped. You don't even realize when your own condition is acting up. At a red light, he tried to start driving again, but the dizziness and heat kept intensifying. My skin felt flushed. Damon, can you help me first? The words slipped out before I could stop them. His gaze flicked to my legs, then away, his voice roughened but steady. Hang on, we're going to a clinic. My breathing grew uneven. Damon, I don't feel well. He sighed and sped up, but 2 minutes later, he didn't pull into a hospital. He turned into an empty park instead. I reached toward him instinctively, seeking anything that felt grounding. My neck, it feels too warm. Damon took a deep breath. When you're clear-headed again, no more running away. My mind was already foggy. I nodded. Then Damon placed his hand gently on the back of my neck. Cool, steady, and I shivered at the sudden relief. The world blurred softly around us. I didn't end up going to the hospital. Instead, Damon called his private doctor, who came to give me a stabilizing injection and prescribed a full set of medication. So this episode passed rather quickly. When my mind finally cleared, 2 days had already gone by. I pushed myself up from the bed, feeling surprisingly refreshed. Fragments of memory stitched themselves together. Great, here we go again. Even though Damon only used his hands to help me through the worst of my hormonal instability this time, I could still clearly recall the sensation of being physically supported by him. At that moment, the door opened. I instinctively dove under the blanket and pretended to be asleep. His footsteps approached the bed, closer, closer. I kept my eyes shut, rigid as a statue. But Damon didn't leave. Instead, he stopped right by the bed. A few seconds later, someone gently pinched my cheek. If you keep pretending, I'm going to. I couldn't keep up the act anymore. I slowly cracked my eyes open, pretending to have just woken up. Damon, why are you here? He looked completely unfazed. Did you forget who helped you through your hormonal spike? His gaze drifted toward his own hand. The moment I remembered what he'd done to help stabilize me, my face instantly burned. Chase, Damon said, when are we going to settle this? I gripped the sheets and hissed, I'll give you an explanation. His lips curved slightly. Take your time. No matter how long it takes, I'll wait, as long as you sort things out in your head. He turned, picked up a glass of water and the medicine on the nightstand, and passed them to me. Be good, take your meds. After you wash up, come down for something to eat. Before leaving, he gently patted my head. Was this the calm before the storm? When I went downstairs, Damon was in the kitchen cooking. A truly all-round alpha. Who wouldn't be moved seeing this? I forced my heartbeat back to a normal rhythm and sat at the dining table. Damon placed the dishes down just in time. It was a rare, peacefully quiet meal. Later that night, after returning to my place, I lay on my bed contemplating life, when my phone rang. It was my mom. "Chase, do you remember the friend you used to play with before we moved?" I paused for a moment before asking. "Bruno?" "That's right. I still remember the two of you crying your eyes out when we moved. We even joked about arranging a childhood engagement for you back then." "Mom, that was ages ago. Don't bring that up." She continued. "Bruno came back to the country recently and plans to move to your city. He'll arrive the day after tomorrow. Don't forget to pick him up." Then she added more quietly, "And Bruno is an alpha. You're both single. Maybe you could get to know each other again." I groaned. "Mom, can you not matchmake me with every alpha you meet?" Honestly, Bruno and I hadn't really kept in touch. When he went abroad 5 years ago, we still messaged at first. But over time, the conversation dwindled. Aside from occasional holiday greetings, we barely contacted each other anymore. The last time we spoke was during the Lunar New Year. I ruffled my hair in frustration. One problem after another. Bruno's flight arrived in the morning. After lunch, Damon returned to the office to work overtime. I stood by his desk, trying to assemble my words. He lifted his gaze toward me. "Something you want to say?" I nodded. "Damon, I'd like to take tomorrow morning off. Are you feeling unwell?" "Might as well be honest. A friend is arriving, and I promised I'd pick him up." He paused, thoughtful, then nodded without further comment. The next morning, after getting ready, I headed to the airport. I spotted Bruno not long after. He stood a short distance away and called out, "Chase, over here." He hadn't changed much in 5 years, just more mature, both in looks and demeanor. He walked up and ruffled my hair like he used to. "Long time no see." I checked the time. "Hungry? I booked a restaurant. It's pretty good." He nodded and followed me to the parking lot. We arrived at the restaurant soon after. The first time I came here was with Damon. Just as we settled into our seats, a familiar figure appeared. I quickly grabbed the menu to hide my face. Too late. I'd been spotted. Damon walked straight to our table. "Assistant Chase, this must be your friend." There was no escape. I forced a smile. "Damon, what a coincidence." Bruno asked. "Chase, this is..." I wanted to cry. "My boss." Trying to be polite, I added, "Damon, did you come alone? Want to join us?" Internally, I was screaming. "Please say no. Please just say no." "Sure. I'd be glad to." I mentally slapped myself. Why did I even open my mouth? While waiting for the food, Damon glanced at Bruno. They exchanged a small nod. At first, the atmosphere wasn't too bad, but once the dishes arrived, everything started to go wrong. Damon cut a portion of steak and pushed it in front of me. "Eat this." Bruno peeled a lobster and added it to my plate. "Chase, you used to love shrimp." With a completely straight face, Damon pulled the entire plate of lobster toward himself and began peeling each one methodically. "I didn't even like shrimp that much." Bruno chuckled softly. "Oh, by the way, I forgot to explain my relationship with Chase." He looked at Damon and introduced himself. "I'm Bruno, Chase's fiancé." Pfft, good thing I wasn't eating, or I would have sprayed everything. I stared at him, bewildered. "What did you say? Since when?" Bruno replied calmly. "You don't remember? Our families arranged it when we were kids." Damon let out a short, cold laugh, face darkening as he continued peeling shrimp with far too much force. "Anyone hearing this would think you're from a century ago. Childhood engagements, really?" The shells were tough, and Damon grew increasingly rough with them. I warned him. "Stop, or you'll hurt your hand." He ignored me, and soon, he'd peeled nearly the entire plate. "TSK." I rushed to grab his hand. A small bead of blood appeared on his fingertip. I turned to Bruno. "You go ahead and eat. We'll be right back. We're going to clean this up." Damon raised an eyebrow and followed me toward the restroom. People came and went in the restaurant, so we kept it quick. After disinfecting the cut, I took out a band-aid from my bag and carefully placed it on his finger. Damon still had the audacity to tease. "Good thing you got to me in time. Any later, and I might have healed completely." I couldn't help laughing. Childish. The moment we finally finished dinner, Bruno received a work call and left by taxi. I turned to Damon, but he didn't give me a chance to speak. He simply took my wrist and led me straight into his car. The ride was fast, but steady. When we arrived at his office, he pulled me inside. The blinds snapped shut behind us, and he cornered me gently but firmly. "So this is the explanation you promised me?" he asked, voice low. "You went out with another alpha, and to a restaurant I took you to first. A fiancé? A childhood arrangement? Are you trying to drive me crazy?" He was too close. My legs felt weak, and I couldn't steady myself. I tried to pull away, but he easily held me in place. His fingers brushed the hem of my shirt, not in a suggestive way, but with a frustrated restlessness. "Move again," he warned quietly, "and I won't guarantee I can keep calm." My voice trembled. Damon, I'll give you my explanation. Right now. He froze, waiting. I'll be at your disposal, during work, after work, until you cool down. Is that enough? Silence stretched. Then Damon let out a soft, helpless laugh. Chase, do you really think I only see you as my assistant? Are you actually this clueless, or are you pretending? He lifted my chin, making me meet his eyes. He leaned close, breath warm against my ear. Chase, I like you. It has nothing to do with biology. It's because you're you. My heartbeat stumbled, then sped up uncontrollably. He brushed his nose lightly against mine, a gentle, affectionate gesture. Baby, he whispered, I'll give you time to accept being my boyfriend. Just don't make me wait forever. Before I could respond, someone knocked on the door. Damon, a contract needs your approval. I slipped out from under his arm like a startled cat and fled the office. Disaster. My boss had confessed to me, and he called me baby. Worse, my heart reacted. The second the clock hit closing time, I grabbed my bag and ran before he could catch me. At home, I sat on the sofa in a daze, unable to think. My mind was full of Damon. I did have feelings, but only in my dreams did I dare act on them. Besides, I was just an incompatible omega. Everything was a mess, and if I couldn't sort it out right away, I might as well stop trying for the moment. Damon said he'd give me time anyway. As expected, when we returned to work, aside from a hint of awkwardness, neither of us brought up the confession again. But Damon seemed clingier. Eating together was mandatory. Even during lunch breaks, he tossed away the blanket I used and replaced it with his. That day, while resting, Bruno messaged me. Chase, free for dinner tonight? Damon was lying beside me. I suddenly felt guilty for no reason. Instead of replying to Bruno, I poked the alpha beside me. I'm having dinner with Bruno tonight. To my surprise, Damon didn't get angry. Instead, he asked softly, Baby, are you telling me, because you want to? I am not. I turned away, refusing to look at him, though the tips of my ears were burning. After work, Bruno came to pick me up downstairs. I had no choice but to get into the car right in front of Damon. Bruno ordered all my old favorites. The atmosphere was warm as we reminisced about our childhood. Near the end, he set down his utensils, expression serious. I always thought you'd wait for me, that when I came back, I'd finally get to tell you all this. Chase, maybe I'm late, but I don't want to give up. Will you give me a chance to pursue you? I stared at him for a long moment. I'm sorry, Bruno. You deserve someone who suits you better. He gave a small smile, tinged with regret, as if he'd already expected my answer. We're still friends, right? Of course. At least, he said softly, friendship is something that never fades. Chase, I hope you'll be happy. After dinner, we went our separate ways. I stepped out of the restaurant and felt like I had made a major decision. I hailed a taxi. Destination, Damon's home. Sir, please drive faster, someone's waiting for me. The moment I reached the door and pressed the bell, still out of breath, I was pulled into a warm embrace. Damon held me as if he had known I would come. We stayed that way for a long time, silent and steady. His voice rumbled softly against my ear. You smell like another alpha. Flustered, I quickly shrugged off my coat as he led me inside. From the living room to the bedroom, rose petals were scattered everywhere. Damon picked up a large bouquet. Tears stung my eyes as I looked up at him. How did you know I'd come? Because, he murmured, I know you like me too. Baby, can I have your answer now? I didn't speak. I rose on my toes and pressed my lips lightly to his cheek, soft, warm, full of promise. This is my answer. The bouquet slipped from his hands, falling to the floor. He cupped the back of my head and pulled me close, kissing me deeply, not heatedly, but with overwhelming affection. It made me whimper softly from the intensity of emotion. You're kissing too hard, I muttered. He finally let go, forehead touching mine. Baby, I like you so much. Life settled into a peaceful, loving rhythm. One morning at work, I walked out of Damon's office with slightly swollen lips. A colleague whispered, Assistant Chase, your mouth. I covered it quickly, but everyone had already understood. Don't tell us you and Damon think we still don't know, someone said gently. I weakly protested, we're just a very professional boss-assistant pair. Please don't misunderstand. Another colleague added, I once came back for documents after hours and saw you two kissing. And I saw Damon drinking the coffee you didn't finish. And I saw you get into his passenger seat. And that tie. Damon wore it yesterday. Every sentence hit harder than the last. I pressed my lips together. Sorry for hiding it so long. Dinner's on me next time. Even though I often stayed at Damon's place, I still returned home a few days a week. After much persuasion and soft pressure, I finally gave in. On our first official day living together, I hadn't even unpacked when he swept me into his arms. Damon opened the bedside drawer and revealed a few things I'd never seen before. Playful, silly accessories like bunny ear headbands and other harmless props clearly meant to tease me. Before I could escape, he caught my ankle gently and pulled me toward him. I tried to run, but it was pointless. He slowly removed the suppression patch on my neck, his touch careful and tender. "Baby," he whispered, "it's the weekend tomorrow." We shared breath, warmth, closeness. Nothing inappropriate, just an overwhelming sense of falling for each other completely. Later, I stood by the window, legs weak from emotion, voice soft and shaky. "Damon, you're impossible." He nuzzled against my neck, chuckling. "Baby, I adore you." The storm of emotion lasted deep into the night, and in Damon's arms, I knew, from now on, I'd have someone to walk through every day with.
As we reach the end of this story, there's one thing that stands out above everything else: the tension between identity, desire, and denial. What begins as a chaotic accident slowly becomes a journey of trust, vulnerability, and the fear of not being good enough. I find the writing especially impressive in the way it explores the contrast between the characters: Damon, the seemingly untouchable alpha with strict self-control, and Chase, the omega who has spent his whole life believing he is defective. Their dynamic creates a push and pull that drives the entire narrative forward. What I appreciate most is how the author uses small moments, eye contact, hesitation, humor in awkward situations, to show emotional growth instead of simply telling us. The chemistry feels real because it comes from two people slowly learning how to communicate, even if they stumble through it. Of course, the story isn't perfect. Some scenes are intentionally dramatic, maybe even a little over the top. Certain moments escalate quickly, and the misunderstandings could feel exaggerated for some readers. But that's also part of the charm. This novel leans into its genre boldly, embracing both the softness and the chaos of a complicated relationship. Overall, it's a story about acceptance, accepting who you are, accepting who you love, and letting yourself believe that you deserve happiness. But what about you? Which moment left the deepest impression on you? Did you prefer the emotional build-up, the humor, or the dramatic tension? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take.